Chapter 1. The Indigenous Peoples and Early Settlements, pre-1492 to 1607. The history of America begins long before the arrival of European explorers. Native American civilizations thrived across the continent, with diverse cultures, societies, and advanced agricultural practices. These indigenous peoples developed intricate civilizations such as the Maya, Aztec, and Inca in Central and South America, while in North America, tribes like the Iroquois Confederacy and Cherokee Nation established complex political systems. Chapter 2. European Exploration and Colonization, 1492 to 1700. In 1492, Christopher Columbus, sponsored by Spain, embarked on a voyage that led to the European exploration of the Americas. Other European powers followed suit, including England, France, and the Netherlands. These nations established colonies along the eastern seaboard of North America. The Spanish conquered vast territories in Central and South America, establishing an empire characterized by the extraction of resources and the forced labor of indigenous people. Chapter 3. The 13 Colonies and the American Revolution, 1607 to 1783. The English established 13 colonies in North America, each with its own unique character and economy. Over time, tensions arose between the colonies and the British Crown, leading to a growing desire for self-governance. In 1776, the colonies declared independence as the United States of America, sparking the American Revolution. The war concluded in 1783 with the Treaty of Paris, granting the United States its independence from Britain. Chapter 4. Building a New Nation, 1783 to 1860. Following the American Revolution, the newly formed United States faced numerous challenges as it sought to establish a functioning government and expand its territory. The Constitution was drafted in 1787, creating a framework for the federal government and safeguarding individual rights. The early years of the nation saw the development of political parties, with the Federalists and Democratic Republicans engaging in debates over the scope of government power. In the early 19th century, the United States experienced significant territorial expansion. The Louisiana Purchase of 1803 doubled the size of the nation, while westward exploration and settlement led to conflicts with Native American tribes. The concept of manifest destiny, the belief in American expansion across the continent, fueled territorial ambitions, resulting in the Mexican-American War of 1846-1848. This war ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which added vast territories, including California and the Southwest, to the United States. However, the issue of slavery cast a dark shadow over the nation. As the United States expanded, the question of whether new states would be free or slave became a major source of division. This tension eventually erupted into the American Civil War in 1861. Pitting the industrialized northern states against the agrarian southern states that relied heavily on slavery. The war was fought to preserve the Union and abolish slavery, resulting in the victory of the Union forces in 1865. Chapter 5. Reconstruction and the Gilded Age, 1865 to 1900. After the Civil War, the United States faced the task of rebuilding the war-torn South and integrating millions of newly freed African Americans into society. Reconstruction policies sought to provide civil rights and voting rights for African Americans, but they were met with resistance and violence from white supremacist groups. Reconstruction came to an end in 1877 as federal troops withdrew from the South and gave way to the Jim Crow era of racial segregation. Meanwhile, the country experienced rapid industrialization and economic growth. The late 19th century, often referred to as the Gilded Age, witnessed the rise of industrial tycoons such as Andrew Carnegie and John D.A. Rockefeller. However, this era was also marked by widespread corruption, income inequality, and poor working conditions for many Americans, leading to calls for reform. Chapter 6. Progressivism, World War I, and the Roaring Twenties, 1900 to 1929. At the turn of the 20th century, a progressive movement emerged, aiming to address the social, economic, and political issues of the Gilded Age. Progressive reformers championed causes such as workers' rights, women's suffrage, and regulations on monopolistic practices, the movement led to landmark legislation, including the Pure Food and Drug Act and the establishment of national parks. In 1917, the United States entered World War I, fighting alongside the Allied powers against the Central Powers. The war boosted the American economy but also brought social changes, as women joined the workforce and African American soldiers faced discrimination both abroad and at home. The war ended in 1918 with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles. The 1920s saw a period of cultural transformation and economic prosperity known as the Roaring Twenties. Technological advancements, such as the widespread adoption of the automobile and the growth of the film industry, reshaped American society. However, this era came to an abrupt end with the stock market crash of 1929, leading to the Great Depression. Chapter 7. The Great Depression and the New Deal, 1929 to 1941. The Great Depression was a severe economic crisis that gripped the United States and much of the world in the 1930s. Stock market speculation, excessive borrowing, and a lack of government regulation led to a collapse of the financial system, causing widespread unemployment, poverty, and homelessness. The Depression had a profound impact on American society, with millions of people struggling to meet their basic needs. In response to the crisis, President Franklin D. Roosevelt implemented a series of bold economic and social reforms known as the New Deal. The New Deal aimed to provide relief, recovery, and reform, and included programs such as the Works Progressive Administration, WIO Pay, and the Social Security Act. These initiatives aimed to create jobs, stabilize the banking system, and provide a safety net for the most vulnerable. The New Deal had a significant impact on the nation, providing immediate relief to millions of Americans and implementing long-lasting reforms that shaped the role of the federal government in the economy and society. While the New Deal did not fully end the Great Depression, it laid the foundation for recovery and established a new era of government involvement in social welfare and economic regulation. Chapter 8. World War I and the Post-War Era, 1941 to 1960. In 1941, the United States entered World War following the attack on Pearl Harbor by Japan. The war brought about a massive mobilization effort, with millions of Americans joining the military and the home front supporting the war effort through rationing, victory gardens, and women entering the workforce in large numbers. The United States, along with the Allied powers, eventually emerged victorious in 1945 after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, leading to Japan's surrender. The post-war period was characterized by significant social and economic changes. The returning soldiers benefited from the GI Bill, which provided educational opportunities and access to home loans, leading to a surge in higher education enrollment and suburban growth. The United States became a global superpower, engaged in a Cold War with the Soviet Union marked by political and ideological tensions. The 1950s saw a period of economic prosperity and cultural conformity, often referred to as the Eisenhower era. Suburbanization, consumerism, and the rise of television shaped American society. However, the civil rights movement gained momentum, with African Americans and other marginalized groups demanding an end to racial segregation and discrimination. Chapter 9. Civil Rights Movement and Social Change, 1960 to 1980. The 1960s were a decade of intense social and political upheaval. The civil rights movement gained momentum, with activists such as Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Malcolm X leading the fight against racial segregation and for equal rights. The movement achieved significant victories, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The Vietnam War became a major point of contention, sparking widespread protests and anti-war sentiment. The counterculture movement emerged, challenging traditional norms and advocating for social change, civil liberties, and environmental protection. In the 1970s, the feminist movement gained traction, advocating for women's rights and reproductive freedom. The Watergate scandal rocked the nation, leading to the resignation of President Richard Nixon in 1974. The energy crisis, economic stagnation, and the Iranian hostage crisis further challenged the United States during this period. Chapter 10. Modern America and Globalization, 1980 to present. The 1990s witnessed a period of relative prosperity and technological advancement. The end of the Cold War led to a shift in global dynamics, and the United States emerged as the world's sole superpower. The economy boomed, fueled by the rise of the internet and the dot-com industry. However, the decade also faced challenges such as the Gulf War in 1991, and the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center in 1990. In the 21st century, the United States faced significant events that reshaped the course of its history. The terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001, marked a turning point leading to the War on Terror and military interventions in Afghanistan and Iraq. These conflicts had far-reaching consequences both domestically and internationally, including debates over civil liberties, foreign policy, and the rise of extremist ideologies. The Great Recession of 2008, triggered by a financial crisis in the housing market, resulted in a global economic downturn. The United States faced high unemployment rates, housing foreclosures, and a struggle to recover from the economic downturn. Efforts were made to stabilize the economy, including the passage of the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. Social and cultural issues continued to shape the nation. Debates over immigration, healthcare, gun control, climate change, and LGBTQ rights sparked intense political discourse and polarization. The election of Barack Obama in 2008 as the first African-American president was a significant milestone in American history, symbolizing progress in civil rights. More recently, the United States has faced challenges such as mass shootings, racial tensions, and the COVID-19 pandemic, which had a profound impact on public health, the economy, and daily life. As the history of America continues to unfold, the nation grapples with the complexities of a diverse society, ongoing social and political issues, and the need to address pressing global challenges such as climate change and inequality. The story of America is one of resilience, progress, and constant change, as it strives to uphold the ideals of freedom, democracy, and equality for all its citizens.